back. My name is Dean. Nice to see you. What is this, Tuesday? Right now, if you're listening to us, it's 3:10 p.m. Very self-centric. Shouldn't be this self-centric, but why not? The world is, right? So many things going on in the world. Here in Canada, we're yelling at each other for being too this or too that. We're upset because when we get our groceries home, the milk may have been bad. We snap, we lose it, we freak out. Someone gets elected to be the conservative leader of this, everybody freaks out. Your prime minister says this, freak out. Everybody freaks out. Everybody. With no reason. Like, there's zero reason to freak out anymore. Like, none. Not when you compare it with the rest of the world. What's going on with the rest of the world, right? I mean, it's impossible. How can you compare rotten milk and being angry about rotten milk when there are wars and a series of wars going on around the world? So today we're going to take a break. We're going to take a break from talking about ourselves and what we think and getting on soapboxes. We're going to take a break from all the bullshit, all the Twitter fighting, all the anger, all the misnomers, all the mudslinging. We're going to take a break from all that stuff, and we're going to go to Ukraine. Irpin, Ukraine, to be exact. We're also going to go to Edmonton, maybe just outside Edmonton, St. Albertish. We've got a couple of guests here to talk about some things that are going on in Ukraine, which everybody thought was absolutely impossible. You think you've got problems? There's a fucking war going on in Ukraine. So put down your rotten milk, grab a cup of coffee, and please say hello to our guests for today's program on the Dean Blundell Show. Please welcome from Edmonton, 25-year combat veteran of the Canadian Forces, my friend and the host of Fire for Effect, the podcast, Mr. Army Chris, ladies and gentlemen. And we can't do this. We can't give you a good news day for our friends in Ukraine. We can't talk about what's going on in Ukraine without being in Ukraine. Please welcome to the program my very dear friend and yours. He's been with us from the very start. And I remember him saying to me at one point, he's like, we will fight, we will stand, and we will win. And I believe him today, as does the rest of the world. Please welcome Alex Dayrabekove as well. He's back on the program. Look at that face. And can I say this? I have not seen that smile yet.
Look at that smile.
I have not seen your face like this, beaming ear to ear. We've talked to you for 6 months on and off. Every time we've had you on, Alex, you've been like this. Hi fellas. Oof. Another tough day here in the war. We're hiding in the woods. Hi, fellas. Oh, tough day here. I'm documenting war crimes. How are you? Hi, fellas. Tough day here. We managed to duck a couple of cruise missiles, but we're on our way to the market to go get some meat. Alex, great to see you. Wonderful to have you here. Before we get started on the wonderful news coming out of Ukraine and we break some of it down, Army Chris is here to help us kind of learn about the tactical issues that Russia seems to have, as well as motivational issues, as well as equipment issues, as well as food issues, as well as leadership issues. We're going to talk about that. We're also going to talk about what Ukraine is doing right. We're going to talk about the mood of the Ukrainian people today. It has shifted massively. We've got video from that. We've got assets to kind of show people. But more importantly, I just wanted to let you know that in England, Prince Charles is having problems with his fountain pen. I just wanted to let you know. Now, King Charles, he's having problems with his fountain pen. Before we get started, you think you got problems, Alex? You think you've been up against it for the past 6 months? What about King Charles' fountain pen? Let's watch this together, and then we'll talk about gratefulness after this. This is
I just had to put, is it September the 12th?
13, sir.
Oh, God, I'm the wrong date. 13?
Yes, sir.
You saw 12 earlier.
Where did I put the 12th? Something 10. Oh, God, I hate this.
Oh, look, it's going everywhere. Hang on. So nobody got shot.
Where is the man?
Oh, look, it's everywhere.
Can't bear this bloody thing. What are they doing? Everyone's stinking.
Oh my God!
You think you got problems? Alex?
Wow!
That guy's pen just keeps leaking, and it won't stop leaking, and it's just terrible. Anyway, sorry, I just wanted to throw that into the start to have a good laugh. How are you, dude? Nice to see you. How are you feeling? Explain this smile. What is happening in Ukraine today?
It's so good to see you guys, and the moods are really high, and I keep smiling. I honestly I started taking sleeping pills because of the emotional stage we are for the past week.
Mhm.
2 weeks ago when we had our conversation,
Mhm.
the counteroffensive just started,
Mhm.
and the first week was kind of strange, but this past week was just a complete turnover from whatever happened within the entire war, and actually all the 8 years of this conflict.
Yeah, because the conflict's been going on 8 years. Alex Dayrabekove joins us from European Ukraine. Army Chris is here. We're talking about the Ukraine and Ukraine and the war in Ukraine, the war with the Russians. There's been major news as of really the last week to 2 weeks. We started seeing, news about it. I would say 2 weeks ago that there were like softening targets. Ukraine was planning to take back the east. I think a very skeptical world was kind of sitting around going, I don't know. And like the news just keeps getting better and better. Can you kind of bring us up to speed, Alex? What do you know about the offensive over the past 2 weeks? What kind of land grab have the Ukrainian people been able to achieve, and kind of how have they done it? Like, what is the latest, if you will?
Just in a nutshell, for those who haven't been watching, the northeast of the country, specifically the Kharkiv Oblast, that's where the first breakthrough happened. And I understand now that the Ukrainian army tricked the Russians big time, because they had expected the breakthrough in the south, and that's what was on their news, on what their mill bloggers were writing about. But in fact, Ukrainians attacked in the northeast, in the unexpected uh, spot of the front line,
Mhm.
with light armored vehicles, and they they swiftly started capturing the land. And as of now, within the basically the 7 days of the counter offensive, we have liberated more than 6,000 square kilometers. 6,000 square kilometers is just like two London metropolitan areas combined.
Mhm. Mhm.
Yeah. So this is the on the right we can see as it was, and on the left we can see as it is now in a week, just
Mhm.
basically.
Yeah, so September 6th, that's the offensive again a couple of weeks ago. September 6th is when it kind of it had just begun, and there wasn't a lot of talk about it, is what you're saying, because they were talking about how they were going after targets in the south, right? They were, the Ukraine army was kind of heading down towards Melitopol, Mariupol, like heading down into that region, right? Near Odessa, that whole area in the south. But what they decided to do, so they telegraphed that, is what you're saying. They said, hey, yeah, we're sending everything down there. But while they were telegraphing that, they sent light armored vehicles. So what does that entail? Maybe you could kind of tell, like they sent like a bunch of guerrilla Ukrainian warfare guys in smaller armored vehicles to go and start taking back land north in Kharkiv, in the Kharkiv Oblast. Is that correct?
Yeah, I guess Chris can explain a lot better how it
Sure.
is on the military side, right?
Mm-hmm.
So that's a classic feint operation, if you will, and well done for sure. Draw a ton of attention to a different area, convince the enemy that they need to fortify and focus their efforts on that area, and I'm going to get into more detail on this later. They would have taken the time to do a lot of surveillance and reconnaissance to determine where the weak points were, send in small units to penetrate that, communicate where those weaknesses are, and then exploit them. That's what that looks like.
Mm-hmm.
And clearly it worked.
Yeah, so they're telegraphing they're going to go south. Meanwhile, they go north,
Yep.
and the kind of land that they took back, just so I can understand what's happening here. The land that they took back, or what they were able to get back in terms of what was already taken in occupied territory, it was a significant amount of land, right? Like this isn't in a few different towns, like a few different towns and villages in that oblast, correct?
Actually, dozens of settlements, villages, and towns. They all have been occupied with Russia's occupant administration. With sometimes they brought in Russian teachers to replace Ukrainian teachers in the schools. So like completely occupied territories. And with the first 3 or 4 days of counteroffensive, really swift, really aggressive. The Russian side actually understood it on day 5. I think it was Saturday. They actually announced a complete withdrawal from the Kharkiv Oblast.
Which is what we're looking at right here. The Kharkiv Oblast this is the region you're talking about. I think this map actually we took from one of your tweets, if I'm not mistaken.
Yes, yeah. The red those red arrows show the retreat of Russians towards the border with Russia, and that's basically they have been probably given order to just retreat and withdraw.
So is this the only place then that they're doing this, Chris? Do you know, like, because the offensive is kind of, it's all over the place. Like if I look at a different map of the offensive, which we got from BBC, it gives kind of time, temperatures. It tells you like, who's controlling what, where people are advancing, what is being held or maintained by Ukraine. But what is, explain that to me if you can.
Let me break this down into an analogy of when everybody ran out and bought shit paper for no reason. When you see this, when they were conducting operations to the south, which is going to be harder to seize back and hold, in my opinion, versus the north. And I'm not saying the north is no low-hanging fruit. I'm saying they obviously put a lot of time and effort into planning these operations, a significant amount of time, which we'll come to later, to take that ground. And when you have an enemy with low morale, that's under-resourced, that is in fear, panic starts to spread on the radio. So when you hear about these massive withdrawals to the south, it's almost like, are they just doing it because they heard their buddies are leaving? Like there's a mass exodus happening all along that whole eastern border, not just to the north, but also to the south. And I just think that the Ukrainian forces are capitalizing on disarray and panic, and they're giving up ground in the south, which I did not expect. The north for sure, but the south's a little bit of a harder nut to crack.
Okay. So, yeah, we've got a couple things going on here. Obviously, this is the ground that's been taken back or held or regained by Ukraine. Izium's been taken back. I mean, these are all towns that we've watched get pummeled for the past 6 months, where you heard about the occupiers coming into town, and you made mention of this. And the goal here is kind of what they did in the eastern part of Ukraine, if I'm not mistaken, is the Russians kind of take over that space and they meal around for a little while. And the goal for this operation was to push that space out, the eastern part of Ukraine, and to conduct an offensive, and then to do some kind of referendum, if I'm not mistaken, right? Is to basically force these people that are being forced to live under occupant regime, which is Putin's regime. They were going to do this referendum, and to do so, they had to pretend like, yeah, we're bringing Russia back to this area of the country. We're going to turn this back into the motherland. And what they did, which you mentioned, Alex, which I found interesting, and I read it today in a Washington Post article, they were talking about how they've arrested something in the neighborhood of like 80 to 90 Russian teachers who were literally hired to come in and wipe out Ukrainian culture, Ukrainian language, and teach kids in Ukraine and occupied territories who are Ukrainian, teach them about Russia, Russian history from their perspective. Now, my understanding is that almost all the teachers that worked in those schools have been arrested on treason and war crimes charges, if I'm not mistaken. Is that correct?
That's right. That's right. And they will be tried and sentenced to at least 12 years in prison. They will not be even subject to exchange with POWs. with Russia, so they will stay here in jail.
Yeah. Yeah. And it's like that blew my mind. I mean, other than the operation, the idea that they were literally just trying to assimilate through education kids, families. I mean, I don't know what has the reaction been like from people that have been liberated in some of these towns. Have you talked to anybody, Alex? Because obviously you had that feeling when you got a chance to go back to Irpin, clean up, get your life back in order. I mean, you were great with us, kind of taking us through that process when you came back, showing us your car, taking us around your apartment. You'd been out for months. But have you talked to anybody? Because that a lot of that area has been under occupation for a very long time, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah, I actually talked to as I'm looking for the victims and witnesses of war crimes. I found an eyewitness from Izum, the city. If you can show the map, we can see
Yep.
that was just liberated a couple days ago. So the guy stayed with his wife in that city. Yeah, this one, Izum, on the purple territory that is liberated. He stayed for 5 months until basically August. He was detained and kept in a cellar. But his wife actually made a fuss and made a scandal, and they liberated him. But then they captured her. So this is like an amazing story. And they left, and then he also worked to liberate her from that cellar. And then they left in the middle of August. And when I talked to him yesterday, he was like, "I'm gonna leave. I'm gonna come back to Zoom in a week." To which I said, "Please stay away for at least 1 month. There needs to be something done." Like here in Irpin, where I am now, we stayed away for even 2 months, because there needs to be some time so that the infrastructure starts working, the the demining happens, the normal life comes back to Izum and other cities there.
Well, and can you kind of like brief me on what life is like in some of those cities that are in that occupied territory and has been like Luhansk, Kramatorsk, Donbas, Donetsk, Mariupol obviously is recent, Melitopol is obviously recent. I know there's action going on down there. I read a report this morning that said bombs were going off at Melitopol at the army base that was run by the Russians. So that made me laugh my ass off, as well as the news that Russians are pouring out of Crimea right now and intelligence officers are bugging out. We'll kind of get to the Russian bug out and the abandonment of what they've tried to accomplish, because it is like that's the other big story here. It's not just the will of the Ukrainian people. It's not just the stories that are going on, but what was life like for the last 8 years for people that were living in that occupied red zone? Like, is it and have you talked to anybody that's been like, oh my God, like we can't believe that we're seeing Ukrainian flags go up over our administrative buildings?
I'm staying in touch with all the eyewitnesses who we talked to from those places in the occupied territories: Kherson, Mariupol, Luhansk Oblast, and of course all of them, those who are pro-Ukrainian, and they are obviously pro-Ukrainian. They are so happy. They are like all the same as me. We're just sharing the good news, and we are like applauding our Ukrainian army, and they are looking forward to complete liberation of their lands. So that's the entire spirit is very, very high. People are happy.
Is it different? Did you believe when we first started to talk to you and this broke out like 6 months ago, did you believe that what you were saying? Or were you just saying it when you were saying we're going to win, we're going to fight, we're going to be fine? Don't worry about us.
Look, before the war started, I had actually watched closely what was going on. I kind of expected that it should happen. Still, it was a shock for me as well, like for everyone else. The first day of war was a shock for me. But on day one, I remember clearly, and it's not just to tell you. I remember clearly. I was like 98% confident we would win. We had a communication with my friend, or I should say ex-friend, from Crimea, where he's a very pro-Russian guy. And I basically finally said to him, "Fuck off.
Good.
You will lose."
Good for you.
That's what I said. Day one, yeah, I was 98% sure. The next day, after I understood the first signals that we are actually defending ourselves, we are not losing, I was 100% sure. Since day two, I have been always 100% sure.
Really?
Yes.
Because I
Even
said to you
though-
before. Go ahead.
Yeah, even though it was the situation was really dim, it was really hard. Everybody knows that we're like very, very close to like complete failure. But I was like, I kept this confidence, and it helped me to actually survive and live through.
And that's what everybody needs. You have to wake up every day, no matter how bad it is, and say, I'm 100% confident we will win, or you won't.
Yeah, because some of my cousin, who is a very pro-Russian guy, he actually tried to give me an advice. He said, take off all your pro-Ukrainian posts from the Facebook, to which I also said to him, fuck off. And I continued doing that, even though I knew that if Russians came, and I would be in a big trouble. I would probably be dead if I was captured.
It boggles my mind that in the middle of a devastating war, that there's still people arguing on social media.
Hey, dude, you should take that off Facebook. You're gonna get murdered.
Right.
That's fucking hilarious. So he calls you. So have you called him? Have you talked to him since, or have you talked to your ex-friend since? Like when the news of this stuff broke, and you're seeing like, by the way, this will make you happy. You're seeing Russian guys just kind of laying there with like fucking fresh boots on that got shot. This guy got shot by his commanding officer when he was trying to leave. By the way, these are a couple of tanks that these were literally abandoned. Which is the other part of this story, right? You're going to have bragging rights for some of your friends if you ever get to actually talk to them again. But that part of this response has amazed me, that story has gotten out. And some of the other stories that are coming out, not just the bravery, and we'll talk about that with Chris and break it down in just a second, how the Ukrainian people have done this. Obviously with a little bit of help from the West, but the fortitude to hang it out, to rope a dope at world superpower. It'll say, hey, yeah, go ahead. We're not leaving. We're going to fight. And then while that's going on, to work on logistics, to hoard missiles and get MRLS systems, to drum up support, like Zelensky and the Ukrainian people and the marketing that went into the world appeal. So all that's going on. Everybody's taking bullets and they're planning and they're hoarding. And here we are. I mean, the logistical help and the intelligence help that they're getting from the rest of the world is great. But this is something that you guys have to do on your own, and you did it, and you're kicking the shit out of the world's second biggest superpower, which I don't think is a real superpower, to be honest with you. But like, it's just been incredible to watch. Abandoned tanks. There's a Ukrainian guy giving the tank the finger. And some of the words that are coming out of the Kyiv Independent. Like, I mean, these things have got to float your boat. Like, if you're a Ukrainian citizen and you open up Twitter this morning and you see this from the Kyiv Independent, Ukraine's southern counteroffensive continues to have significant impact on Russian military capabilities. The Institute for Study of War said satellite imagery of known Russian positions in, I don't know how you say that. How do you say that? Kiselivka. 15 kilometers northwest of Kherson just shows 4 Russian vehicles left. I mean, there were hundreds. Can you imagine being a Ukrainian citizen waking up to that after the anxiety and the stress for the past couple of months? Explosions heard at Russian military base in Melitopol. City's mayor Ivan Fedorov said the 3 loud explosions had been heard around 2:30 p.m. at an airfield in Russian-occupied Melitopol in Zaporizhia Oblast. This is where, of course, the nuclear power plant is. I mean, this is all good news. This news. Ukraine's military says the Anatovsky Bridge near occupied Kherson unusable or by Russian military. This is all bad news every minute of every day. And this one caught my attention this morning. Thought this was great. Want to get your opinion on this. Ukrainian intelligence, Russian occupiers begin leaving Crimea, southern Ukraine with their families. That's fucking huge to me. Kyiv Independent has done a wonderful job of updating and giving people news. And if you don't follow them on Twitter, you should. An urgent evacuation of Russian proxies, intelligence officers, military commanders is taking place. The main intelligence directorate said the developments are a direct result of the successful Ukrainian counteroffensive, the report said. And those are cool. Those are incredible. Those are spirit lifting. But how about this report out of the Moscow Times reporting the collapse of the Kharkiv front? Putin retreated to his Sochi mansion, canceled meetings with military staff. In other news, the Kremlin announced referendums on the annexation of Ukrainian territories have been canceled. And what else I got out of that is Putski's in hiding, and he calls himself Frank Miller now, ladies and gentlemen. Frank Miller. Hey, aren't you Putin? Nope, not at all. I'm an HVAC salesman from Nebraska.
He's an HVAC salesman.
Never heard of him.
Never heard of him. You look a lot like never heard of him. What are you hearing the same stories? And then we'll get. I know, Frank Miller. Frank Miller. There he is. Look at the guy. But are you hearing the same stories that are coming out? Like you're getting peppered with the same information. This is all accurate information. I mean, you know, obviously the smile on your face says it probably is.
Well, yeah. In general, you know, regarding this offensive, the media, the bloggers have been asked to keep silence. Mm-hmm. So there is not much information about what is going on, unless the president himself or the general staff announces that, okay, we have captured so many dozens of settlements and liberated so many thousands of square kilometers of land. Yeah, other than that, there's news of that, but we are kind of, I still think that it will go on for a long, long time. Those are just...
Do we lose him?
He's frozen.
Frozen?
It's okay. We got better internet. So
we got better internet in Canada. Oh, he'll pop back in.
He'll pop back in.
Yeah. He looks, I got to take a screen grab of that, actually. You know what he looks like? He looks like he's whistling.
He does. He looks happy. He looks like he's having a good day for a change.
Fuck, is he ever having a good day today?
Right?
Aren't you kidding me? Are you kidding me? Even just, dude, like even one of these tweets, if you got one of these tweets as a Ukrainian citizen saying this happened today, don't worry about it, everybody, you'd be fucking over the moon dancing in the streets.
And I'm happy today. So all the blue areas on that map, that's what fucking real freedom looks like. Not all the shit that's getting spewed around in this country. Sorry.
Yeah.
I'll get off my soapbox now.
But dude, you've been in war zones.
Yep.
Right? When you walk into a village where people get freed, like, what's that like? Because I'm watching videos of people crying, giving Ukrainian soldiers cakes, giving Ukrainian soldiers flowers. I mean, you know, these people have been occupied. They've been treated like shit. They've been tortured. They've been murdered. And this has been going on for some time. But what is that like? I mean, take us through that experience.
I'll go back to stories my grandfathers told me about the liberation of Holland. Mm-hmm. You know, what that was like. And then my interactions with the people of the Netherlands, and I have a lot of friends over there, as you know, and just my interactions with the Dutch military and how much respect Allied forces got for the liberation of that country. And then going through war zones like Bosnia and how bad that was, you know, just to be able to stabilize where they're living and provide a sense of security, even if it's for a short period of time, because this is by no means over. It's a massive deal to these people. Like for finally, for 6 months now, these people have been living in fear. They've been living without the bare necessities of life as they've been plundered by an under-resourced Russian army. So to see that, I can't even imagine how they would feel. Like I can envision it, but I would never be able to articulate what that would feel like for those people.
Yeah.
To find, because nobody saw this coming. It was just like, bam, okay, this is happening.
I asked Alex, I'd ask you the same thing. I mean, we had John at the start of this kind of covering, you know, how the war was going to go. It's the first time I've ever done a war on the internet. And I asked Alex, but I'll ask you the same thing. Did you think that this was possible? Alex is back, by the way. Did you think that they would be here in 6 months?
No, we're going to get into it later, but I had obviously when we had first talked about this 6 months ago.
Yeah.
I laid it out the way I thought it was going to go.
Yeah.
And I'm so happy that's not the way it's gone, and it's proved a lot of points. Alex, welcome back.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
Nice
sorry.
to see you, buddy.
Yeah.
Nice to see you. So you were saying you think this is going to go on for a long time?
Yeah, that's gonna last for a long time, and those signals are good. The signals that the members of city parliament of Petersburg asked Putler to step back, from the president's post. Then the Moscow members of parliament. That's not massive yet.
No.
That's just small signals of something is going on, but we need something bigger, and hopefully it will happen faster. But really, I expect that will not happen for a long time, because this is a regime that has been formed for like 20 years. Remember, USSR collapsed within 5 years of perestroika. 5 years. It lasted for 5 years, although it was already kind of done in the mid of 80s. So same here. It will last for a long time. We just have to continue pushing them out, and that's hopefully will start some processes inside the Russian Empire that would be inevitably will lead to resignation of Putler and change of the regime.
Are you hearing anything other than obviously the things that we've talked about coming out of Russia, Alex? Like, because you've got a couple news outlets in Russia that are going, maybe this isn't a good idea now, finally, right? And Peskov came out, that little fucking ferret. Putin's spokesperson came out and he's like, yeah, stuff's happening, but be very careful with what you say about that stuff, and because you can still go to jail for that stuff in this country. But mill bloggers, I want to get into that, and I want to get into the other bloggers, because you're starting to see cracks, right? Like, as you pointed out, you're seeing cracks in the information, and they're admitting it. Like, Russia is admitting to losing the front in Kharkiv Oblast. Russia is admitting that they're not sending any more new troops into the area. Russia is admitting that they suffered defeat, which is like unthinkable. It's unthinkable. So does that lean into what you're saying as well? Is that one of those signals, or would you take that to be a heavier signal that, you're admitting that you're losing when you've painted this as a special operation, no big deal, we're going to save the people, and you've kettled everybody's ability to get real information when they give that information, which was the whole goal, was to shut people out of reality. But they're admitting to this reality to some extent. Does that change anything for you?
Well, on top of Russia, they are not admitting it. That's the problem. The mill bloggers are, and I was again, I have been watching the Russian mill bloggers since the beginning of the war.
Yeah, what is
Now
mill
I signed
bloggers?
up-
Explain what the mill bloggers
Military
are.
bloggers are the Russian guys who kind of understand military, probably a lot worse than me, but still, they are paid by FSB. They are controlled by FSB, the security service.
Oh, so that's a real valid source then.
Yeah. So
FSB is what used to be called the KGB, for those of you guys that don't know that.
Yeah. So they're basically a part of a big propaganda machine in Russia. And what they're doing, they are lying every day about how successful they are, with their offensive and all. But within the past week, they just are completely like fucked. That's the word.
What are they saying?
They were like, the first 2-3 days, they were like, oh, there's something going on. There's cities probably going to be captured by Ukrainians, but not the fact. We are fighting. We will protect the city. We will liberate it. We need to evacuate the people, because when Ukrainian Nazis will come, they will start, killing them and taking to the cellars. So like all the bullshit. But then gradually they're like, wow, we are actually losing. We actually lost. So the mill bloggers actually realized it, because they have the direct connection with the front line, where they speak to some of the Russian soldiers. They really understand what is going on. So they're like, whether I have to continue lying or maybe not. So they started asking questions, And this is, for me, the best signal. They started asking questions, because the entire Russian propaganda is created so that people do not ask any questions.
Wow. So these are like mill bloggers were the military bloggers that were kind of leading the charge, lying to people what was going on the ground, and they can no longer lie about it anymore. And now those mill bloggers are saying, "What's happening? Like, are we getting the truth? Is that what you're suggesting is happening right now with the mill bloggers?" Which is why you're using them as a source, right? Because they're finally going, "Uh-oh."
Yeah.
Uh-oh.
Yeah. In fact, number one blogger, who is Yuri Podolyaka, a guy from Ukraine, but who moved to Crimea and who is completely pro-Russian, again, I've watched him for like 5 months, and every time he was lying and lying. But the last 3-4 days, he was like, yeah, we are fucked up. We are. Let's be honest. But even he cannot criticize the authorities. Well, he kind of criticizes the Ministry of Defense. He's like, and by the way, biggest majority of mill bloggers are now calling for mobilization, for the entire mobilization, which, as we know, Putler is very scared of.
Conscription, like a mobilization of the entire army, and then to conscript.
He's got about 2 million guys in reserve, but if they're as trained as the shitty regular army, I wouldn't worry about that. That also takes an incredible amount of time to mobilize them and equip them, and they're under equipped with what they've got. So that's not the best decision. It'll also create further imbalance as far as public support goes, because the bulk of Russians, depending on what you read, do not want to get engaged in this. So if you go to the conscription route or calling on their entire reserve force, he's already in a fragile state politically. That would only make it worse. So that's like to echo Alex's comment. That's the last thing he wants to do, but he's also getting painted into a corner.
Yeah. Fucking wild, dude. There's so many parts of this that are going on. There's like the good news story of the Ukrainian people and the heart and the will and the leadership, and then you've got the stories of Russian misappropriation and how corrupt it's been for so long, and the losses that they're continuing to take. And just fucking 6 months ago, we were watching people walk around 20 miles outside of fucking Kyiv. We're watching Kyiv get bombed a couple months ago, and because of this news, and it's not just those stories, right? But because of this news, you've got a whole bunch of people that are actually celebrating. This is in the Central Square in Kyiv, I believe, if I'm not mistaken. This is this is last night, if I'm not mistaken, with the news that you've taken some land back, Alex. Is that correct?
Yes, exactly. This is, by the way, this is the place, the very heart of Kyiv, the Maidan, the Square of Independence, where the revolution in 2014 took place. Mm-hmm. Right here, right in this square. I was there many times during the revolution, and
that's amazing.
Yeah. Good celebration.
To watch. Yeah. These are people that haven't done this for 6 months. These are people that have been under martial law and curfew for 6 months. And the news that we're, talking about to Alex, that we're getting firsthand, that we're talking with Army Chris about from the Fire for Effect podcast, that we're getting firsthand, is that the Ukrainian people have made money moves, if you will, into areas that no one considered to be possible. And the genius of the counteroffensive, the rope-a-dope for the past 6 months has been incredible. Let's get to the stories of Russians running like a bunch of bitches. Can we do that too? Because that's a lot of fun to talk about.
Please, let's get there.
Okay, so how does that, Chris? You've watched people abandon their posts. You've been a military veteran for 25 years. What are you hearing? Because I'm hearing stories about Russian soldiers that are literally just getting out of their tanks, dropping their shit, running for a farmhouse, grabbing a dress, getting dressed up like as a woman, and running across the border near Belgrade. I've heard stories of Russian soldiers jumping ship, getting out of foxholes, stealing some kid's bike, and driving as fast as they can the other direction. I'm hearing stories of Russian soldiers getting shot for abandoning their posts. I'm hearing all of it. I'm hearing about guys that are running to France, guys that are just heading south as far as they can, guys that are heading west as far as they can. But more importantly, they're all in disarray, like tens of thousands of Russian soldiers that are blocked off, that are running, that are giving up, that are just handing themselves over to Ukrainian troops. Are you hearing these same stories? Like, take me through some of that if you can.
Absolutely.
Because this is fucking awesome.
It's the perfect storm when you have an undertrained military that is under-equipped, under-resourced, with low morale, who's in fear of their leadership. And we're going to get into all this later on. And their morale is just broken. And if you have broken morale, which is completely polar opposite of where the Ukrainian military is. Whoops, sorry, I'm making a mess here.
Okay, yeah, you're all right.
Yep, got that. Their will to fight is absolutely broken. So it's very simple. As soon as they catch a wind that there's a counteroffensive coming, they will immediately, pull the pin and bail out of there. And there's stories of guys that are on the radio frantically calling back to their commanders, the guys that are supposed to be their leadership. And those guys are like, fucking sorry, you're on your own. We're already out of here. So it's when the morale's that shattered, the command and communication has been spotty. These guys are starving. They're completely demoralized and their will to fight is shattered and broken. If there's a reason to run, they're going to run. And that is spreading like wildfire, because on the radios they hear, hey, my buddies to my left and my right, they already left. I'm out of here. Even if there's no immediate, clear and present threat to them, the fact that everybody to their left and their right is popped smoke and fucked off, they're going to go too. And that's systemically spreading around that entire Eastern Front. And now, as I alluded to earlier, into the South. And that's really good news if you're in the Ukrainian military.
No shit. I mean, just the idea that these guys are bugging out and leaving stuff behind. I put some pictures up on the screen about it a few minutes ago, but this is what it looks like. Like Ukrainian troops or reports. If you follow Ukrainian Weapons Tracker, it's one of the great fucking follows on Twitter. You follow them, don't you, Alex? See a lot of really cool death on that channel. It's fucking great to watch. But like they've put up hundreds of pictures of like tanks, APVs, howitzers and not just APVs and howitzers and tanks, like skids of ammunition, bombs, bullets, all kinds of shit. Like it's like someone said, hey, listen, you better run as fast as you can. Or it's like they've decided, which makes some more sense to me when you explain it like that, is that a lot of the soldiers that were still there called for backup is another one that I heard. They called for evacuation. And when they called for evacuation, the guys who are supposed to be doing the evacuating are like, fuck you, we evacuated like 5 hours ago.
Yeah. So you got to put yourself in the mind. Imagine this is you. You're on the front line in a war you don't believe in.
Yeah.
You haven't talked to your mother in 6 months. You're out of ammunition. You're out of food. There's no fuel for your vehicle. And all your friends just fucked off. What's your will to go on look like? Not very good.
It's not great. I mean, what you're painting there is a pretty tough picture. But that's been this
picture.
army. Well, that's been this army the whole time, Chris. Like that's
Exactly.
been Frank Miller's army this whole time.
I feel sorry
you
for
look
this
a
guy.
lot like Putin. Nope, I'm Frank Miller, HVAC salesman, Nebraska. I don't know what you're talking about. Who is this Putler you speak of? Let's just check out my sweet mustache. But like he did this, right? He sent these guys into a war zone, and I read this story about this Russian soldier that made it to France. You sent it to me, Chris. That story's fucking unbelievable. The stuff
really is.
That officer Filatov. How do you say his last name? What's the guy's name?
Pavel. Of course, I didn't bring my notes with me.
Pavel Filatov. Let's just call him Pavel.
He was
Pavel the soldier.
Yeah, young French paratrooper that was out of the military. He got back in the Russian army. He served in Crimea back in the day. Got back in. Did not believe in the war. It's a short version. You can read his 141-page manifesto about this guy. It's on the internet. He's now seeking asylum in France and speaking out against the whole campaign, and basically giving you a vignette of life as a Russian soldier on the front line. And it's an unbelievable read to show you how low his morale is and will to fight this war, how under-equipped they are. Yeah. And how disparaging it is, and how his peers have openly said, we're only fighting because if we don't, we'll go to jail, because that's what our leadership says. So those are really good stories to give you a little bit of an insight as to what's going on inside of the Russian army at the boots on the ground level.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, the story that he tells, which is amazing, Alex. I'll send it to you. I think I actually maybe even sent it to you. Did I not? I think I did. About this young man who just journaled during that time and like had to wrap himself in garbage to keep warm at night. After like his machine gun was from the 50s. And he had like 4 or 5 bullets. After that, the gun stopped working. They didn't have ammunition when they showed up. Like no ammo, none, zero. They got like rationed ammunition and just said, go that way, start walking that way. And if you see Ukrainian, try and kill him. And the guys like, they walked for days. They had no food. They had no direction. They didn't even know they were in the Ukraine when it started. Sorry, Ukraine,
absolutely.
not the Ukraine. They didn't even know. Right?
No, they were told they were on an exercise and suddenly they're in a war.
Yeah. So, I mean, the stories, and there's like lots of stories, and there are lots of people that did know, that took advantage of the situation. I mean, 26,000, I think, documented war crimes, if that's not what I'm like to date. And this thing isn't going to go away anytime soon, despite the great news. So let's talk about how they did it. Let's talk about what's going on. Chris, you put this up for us, but how is this even possible? And let's go through it. You've created a slide. Take us through it if you can.
I did. Before I jump into this, I just want to say 3 quick things that kind of lend credibility to this. The first one is, Alex, to you, it's the first time I got to meet you. I cannot express enough respect to you and your countrymen for the relentless diligence and perseverance in the face of unbelievable adversity. And your country and its people should be a model to the world on how to combat and resist oppression. So thank you very much. And
thank you, Chris.
The second thing is, it is not weapons and Western support that will win this war. It is the resolve of the Ukrainian people that will ultimately win this war. And I agree with you on your earlier statement that it's going to take time, but you will win. Mm-hmm. Let's go through that slide.
All right. What do we got here? Because you got Ukraine on the left, Russia on the right. Success, Ukraine. Why is succeeding and why is Russia failing? Hit it, Chris.
Yeah. So this is a thumbnail sketch for everybody. It's by no means a comprehensive list, but I want to break down 5 categories. Keep in mind, all 5 categories are linked. Okay. They're not independent, nor are they sequential. They are all linked. But we will start with leadership. So on the Ukrainian side, Zelensky, he leads by example. He's inspired his people. Okay, that leads to high morale and patriotism within your country and within your military. He had the opportunity at the onset of the war to flee, and unlike that coward in Afghanistan, he stayed the course. Putin, on the other hand, he leads with fear. Systemic corruption over the years is noted by everybody within the whole military machine there. He spreads false information by lying to the foot soldiers and his military about what is actually happening. They did not even know they were going into the Ukraine. That leads to fear and low morale amongst the rank and file. Okay. And obviously that style of leadership on each side systemically flows down to all the other elements I want to talk about. Like, look at that fucking guy. Those abandoned vehicles on the side of the road. Why? No gas, no fuel. Didn't know where they were going. Didn't have clear mission objectives. They basically jumped out and ran away. Those are armored personnel carriers. Horrible leadership on the Russian side, which impacts
Great
everything
leadership
else.
by Zelensky. So you got four more: training, tactics, equipment, and logistics. Take us through those real quick.
Training. Ukrainian forces have received training from NATO for 6 months. So the Ukrainian military, has evolved a great deal, mostly due to 6 months of combat in their own neighborhood. And you cannot beat that experience. And they're also receiving training from the West. And obviously the equipment they provided with and the logistical support will influence the next thing, which is tactics. Russia, on the other hand, years of corruption where military commanders within the Russian military have pilfered the coffers rather than invested into their own military has led to poor training, poor morale, and an undisciplined military, which is clearly evident on how they're acting now. We talk about tactics. Tactics are how you're going to execute combat. Okay. driven by an influx of Western equipment, obviously coupled with the proper training and good tactical guidance, is the main reason for the successes that the Ukraine is experiencing. And a big one, and I hit this a couple weeks in my pod, is the Ukrainian resistance. This is a huge force multiplier. Resistances are common throughout history, and they provide an amazing amount of intelligence to the conventional Ukrainian forces on the ground, and at great personal risk, are a massive force multiplier when it comes to providing intelligence and actually conducting combat operations in small unit guerrilla tactics. When you look at what the Russians are doing, they're following legacy Soviet doctrine, but they're not equipped, trained, or logistically supported to realize the outcomes that they want. So they use a lot of artillery that is meant to be followed up with a ground assault. They never had air superiority, which also I have to mention that the Ukrainian military denied them that. That still boggles my mind. So without the air superiority, they never achieved the initial objectives that they wanted to at the onset of the war. Mm-hmm. So the massive artillery campaign you saw along the Eastern Front, they had a ton of artillery ammunition. This is a doctrinal for the Soviet Union and the current Russian military, but it needs to be followed up by a ground assault force with tanks and armored personnel carriers to seize and hold that ground. Now, if those forces are not able to put all of that together, and you only have one piece of, say, 2/3, 1/3, you're not achieving those objectives. Equipment, well, we've seen good examples of that today. The Ukraine's been equipped with Western equipment, coupled that with the legacy equipment they've had, has significantly helped improve the tactical advantage. That with the logistical supply, you have, I wouldn't say it's a never-ending supply of equipment, weapons, and training, but it's a steady flow from the West that's by proxy in this war with the Ukrainian people fighting the war. Russia does not have that advantage. Its equipment has been neglected by years of corruption, and it's dilapidated and antiquated, breaking down, and nor can they logistically support all of that equipment. They're failing to fuel it. They're failing to feed their people. They're failing to provide the ammunition. They're failing to reconstitute after losses, which is the thumbnail sketch of where we are today.
It's Wizard of Oz shit. You've seen the Wizard of Oz, haven't you, Alex? Obviously, you've seen the movie The Wizard of Oz. That old classic.
Yes.
That old classic,
Sure.
Wizard of Oz,
Yeah.
Tin Man.
Yeah.
Courage,
Yeah.
little one wants a heart, one guy wants courage, another guy wants brain and all the other stuff. And they're like, we can't get it. We can't get all these things for ourselves because this guy's like, he's fucked. He's like a big wizard. He's crazy. And they like, let's go figure it out. Let's go see what's out there. And they go out there and they walk into the wizard's palace and they pull it back and it's just fucking little hairy midget.
Yeah.
That's kind of what we're dealing with here, right? It's like Russia. After I listen to Chris, you hear the stories, you see what the Ukrainian military has been able to do with next to nothing, despite the influx and now being kind of a proxy war in regards to what's going on with equipment coming in and intelligence from different NATO countries and everybody sharing information. But it's almost like they pulled a fast one on us for the past 50, 60 years. They bigged themselves up like this massive superpower. Not only were they not a superpower, they didn't pay attention to maintaining any kind of superpower. So if you think, and Chris, this is a question for you, you think that they can't rotate tires on APVs? they can't like supply bullets for guns. They can't maintain weaponry, and they're threatening everybody with a nuclear attack. What are the chances they haven't paid attention to any of that shit either over the past 60 years? Like, and would you trust them? Like here's the great part. I don't believe anything that comes out of that country, and how we've seen the Ukrainian army expose them as a 3 dressed as a 10. I mean, it's got to take all the fear, all the bite out of what we think of Russia as a superpower or an armament superpower, correct? It has to.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, again, 6 months ago, I was living in the same fog as all my peer group that this was the superpower they were going to wrap this up in a week, and they believed that. They rolled into the Ukraine with ceremonial uniforms, expecting to be welcomed with open arms. Here we are now. Those guys can't maintain tires on a truck. And you're going to tell me, and I'm not a nuclear scientist, but if I'm getting paid 6 rubles an hour or whatever to be the guy to push the red button, fuck that. I'm out of here, because I don't know what that thing's going to do. Right? It's been sitting in the ground since the late 50s, and we haven't really done much with it. So yeah, we're going to launch one. Yeah, no, I don't think so. I just don't feel that they're, and I hope I'm wrong. And I can't, to be honest, nobody feels that the nuclear option is a real threat. It's always in the back of your mind, but that's suicide for them. But I doubt that their nuclear capability, based on looking at what their conventional military looks like, is near what they may claim it is. And I just, man, it's insane to think they would push a button and blow up half their own country.
Yeah. Well, that's Alex, right? Like, that's the question I would ask you. I mean, are you even afraid of these guys anymore?
That's probably the reason I was so confident from day one that I personally didn't have I didn't fear. I didn't fear. I understood that, okay, well, if they capture our land, I'm done. I can run away. I can immigrate to another country, start a new life. But this is not. So I stopped fearing them at all. And as we discussed, we at one point we actually studied what we need to do to protect ourselves in case a tactical nuclear strike happens.
Yeah.
So once you discuss it, you do not fear anymore.
It's more what they really need to focus on now is not nuclear retaliation. What they need to focus on now is holding the ground that they've retaken. And that means evacuate people that do not need to be there and start digging in. All that captured equipment, you either repurpose it or you destroy it. That's it. Or sell it to the highest bidder, whatever. And just be prepared for a counteroffensive, because what the Russians are going to do is that they're going to pull everybody back. They're going to regroup. They're going to figure out everything they've done wrong, because they're under a lot of pressure right now. Like, the only guy who's made a worse decision than Russian commanders in the last 24 hours is the head coach of the Denver Broncos. But that's another conversation. So they need to reconstitute, figure out what they're going to do, take stock of what they can do, and then replan a counteroffensive, for lack of a better term. So it is incumbent upon the forces in the Ukraine to figure out how they're going to hold that ground and not let the Russians take it back, and then focus the efforts on continuing that forward momentum in the south.
But but here it's I'm just wondering about your opinion, how long it can take for them to learn. What do you think?
Well, good news, because they have shattered morale. Putler is hiding in his house right now, trying to figure out what his next cabinet shuffle is going to look like. And the thing is, Alex, he's been lied to by his military commanders from the beginning of this, the onset of this invasion, because they live in fear of repercussion if they don't meet the success that he wants. And now there's no more secrets. So he really needs to take stock of what is achievable, what he can do, and what he's going to do in order to save face. And I don't think it's going to happen overnight. He's not willing to mobilize his reserve. He's not willing to conscript. He's depleted as far as ammunition equipment, unless he pulls resources off his eastern front around China and North Korea, which I don't think he's prepared to do, to leave his borders undefended on that side of his country. He needs to get everybody back. And unfortunately, the Ukraine does not have the ability to continue its momentum into that buffer area, into Russian territory, to neutralize those resupply bases, because that would really help. But you can't do that. It's going to take some time. There'll be a bunch of back and forth rhetoric at the political level. You probably see more minor operations where he has a stronger hold in the south. But I think it's going to take a bit of time before you're going to see a reaction from them, because they're so broken right now in the Northeast, and that's an advantage to Ukraine in order to dig in and fortify.
Yeah,
and I hope I'm right. Fuck, I hope
no,
I'm
but
right.
he's being an asshole on the way out too. I don't know if you guys
100% he is.
Yeah, like he's been a massive asshole on the way out. And I've got this video. This is out of Kharkiv, and it is a thermal power plant, Alex, if I'm not mistaken. Thermal power plant, which gave light, internet, all kinds of stuff to people in that area. And by and large, Kharkiv and large areas of the city are down and out, blacked out because of this explosion. And I'll play this for you because I thought, when I saw this, I was like, this can't be real. It's very real. And on the way out, he's targeting like legitimate infrastructure. Did you see that?
Yeah.
That's just fuck. That's just terrorism.
That's all it is.
This is the only thing that they could do. That happened on Sunday. Yeah. So the only thing they could do after our counter offensive is just to do this shit.
Yeah. So basically, we cannot win militarily. So we're going to basically attack civilian infrastructure and civilian targets. That's fucking war crimes.
I don't know if you heard, but the entire cost of the 12 missiles that they shot, and those are caliber missiles that were shot from ships in the Black Sea. The entire cost is $117 million.
That's how much the missiles that they sent to blow up that thermal power plant. That's how much they cost.
Yes. 9 of them were downed, but 3 of them actually hit the targets.
Wow.
And that was the explosion. That was what we saw.
Yeah. The blackout actually lasted for several hours. Okay. So there was but again, I watched the mill bloggers and they were like, Ukrainians, you wanted to get a counteroffensive, so get this. So they were so happy that they're sending those missiles and the blackout to us. But then I think it was yesterday and today, they started some of them actually wrote what, we spent so much money on just a blackout for several hours? Was it worth it?
I guess to them it's like a night in Vegas. It was worth it. Felt good at the time.
Oh, yeah.
That's funny when you put it that way, because it looks horrific. We'll watch it again. Watch this.
Yeah.
Yeah, and
that's a big blast, boys. I've seen a lot of fucking shit explode, and that's a big one.
Yeah, where you see the air around the blast.
Yeah,
and you hear it after, you see it, air just disappears out of the sky.
That looks thermobaric, but it's a 3-second clip. That's a big friggin' boom.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I tried to find more clips of it, but I couldn't. But that was the Kharkiv thermal power plant that was blown up by Putin and Russian forces. Putin's Russian forces, as they were running for their fucking lives. That's just, and you're right, Alex. I mean, if you want to bring it down into a common denominator, all that is terrorism. All you're doing is affecting the individual. All they care about, Russia now, all they care about as they're running like cowards, as they're abandoning ship like rats, all they care about is how can we make the people of Ukraine even more uncomfortable? And how can we exact a little bit of revenge on these guys for sticking up for themselves? Fucking wild to me.
Yeah, it's military with no honor.
No, it's crazy.
Fucking cowards with no honor.
Yeah, but the good news is they're getting spanked right now, and they're getting spanked all the way back to Ukraine. Laughed to the other day where they're like, there's this Russian FSB or FSB telegram where the Russia's like, let's just pretend Volgograd, which is where they stage a whole bunch of their operations, is actually in Ukraine. because they keep pounding the shit out of us with missiles. That way we can say there are no missiles falling on Russian soil. And this guy like sent an email back to the FSB agent that suggested, he's like, you a fucking idiot.
I love that there are now cracks and fissures forming in the propaganda machine.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Like that's Putler's hiding in his house because he's reading his history books and realizes that in 1905, the Russian loss against Japan led to a revolution. And then in 1917, the losses in World War I led to a revolution. And he's scared. And now this airtight propaganda machine he had is starting to slow cracks. And a lot of mothers are asking where their sons are.
Mm.
It is inevitable that despite the pro-liners will always believe whatever they want to believe.
Yeah.
That the population of that country cannot live blindly to what the hell is actually happening. So, and that's a good thing for Ukraine.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Actually,
go ahead.
Sorry. Actually, you mentioned the mothers. Do you know that the USSR actually started withdrawing forces from Afghanistan in 1985, exactly after mothers of those who died in Afghanistan started protesting. That was the big push to Gorbachev to actually, initiate withdrawal from Afghanistan.
I believe that, and because of the moms. And I failed to mention that earlier when I was talking about the resolve and will of a people in a country you're invading.
Mm-hmm.
They should read their history and see how it went for them in Afghanistan, because the same thing is going to happen. They will leave a graveyard of equipment and bodies all the way back to Russia. It'll fucking happen.
Yeah.
Well, one can hope. Huh?
Oh, a joke about equipment.
Yeah.
Do you know who is the biggest supplier of military equipment to Ukraine?
Russia.
More than the United States? Russia.
Yeah. They keep
Yep.
losing their shit in the woods. They keep losing
Right?
like massive tanks. They're like, fuck. Every
Dear
time I was
Russia.
reading a report today where this guy was like, every time we turn
That's
around, we
fucking
see a
funny.
brand new abandoned tank. It's fucking unbelievable.
No, and that's what I meant earlier. As they seize ground, like there's a lot of equipment that is legacy compatible equipment with what the Ukrainian military already uses. So it's like free shit, right on. It's like all the tents that you get after a rock concert festival.
Yeah.
It's free stuff.
Yeah.
And ammunition is compatible ammo. Like there's a lot of stuff they'll be able to repurpose, and that's fucking great. It really is.
Yeah,
'Cause they're
dude.
too
It's,
stupid to sabotage it on their way out. That's how scared they are. The normal drill, if you have to abandon your vehicle, like in the vehicle I rolled in Afghanistan, we had a thermite grenade to destroy everything, or you call in an A-10, you destroy it. That shows you how scared and panicked they are. They're leaving perfectly good, intact equipment, and I'll bet the communication equipment works, and I'll bet the Ukrainian military is listening in to what the Russians are doing right now and leaving it behind. Like that is the tactical advantage is fucking huge by them being that afraid and leaving perfectly good, intact ammo equipment, especially communications equipment. That is invaluable intelligence and warfighting equipment for them. It's great.
Yeah, I read this thing. It was just it wasn't even I didn't read. I'm trying to make it sound like I'm really I was doing some reading. No, I just saw a fucking meme. That's why I saw a slide, and it was like it had like I was doing some research. No, I was on Twitter doom scrolling. Fuck, that's the truth. I was doing, and it's like casualties to date: Russia 75,000 people, like human beings, gone. You guys just mowed them down. The tank count was like 2,100. 2,100 tanks, and of those 2,100 tanks, that is Russia is minus 2,100. You guys are plus 650 tanks, and a lot of that is reusing, taking stuff and retrofitting it. Like they've got an entire metal fabrication unit in the army that is dedicated to taking old shit that Russia leaves behind or stuff that they fucking bomb, and they can take pieces off of. They're putting like howitzers on dune buggies and shit. It's the coolest scariest stuff you'll ever see in your life. But if you look at the actual casualties and the amount of airplanes you shot out of the sky, I think the last number was like 310. Hundreds of drones, hundreds of cruise missiles that you've taken out of the sky, thousands of tanks, tens of thousands of Russian soldiers. I can't remember what the APV count was, or the armored personnel vehicle carriers. I can't remember that. It was in the hundreds. It's like, and then they had this ledger where it was like Russia was minus all this since the start of the war. And you would think if you're in a war, you're going to lose a bunch of equipment. The Ukraine was in the green plus in every category. It's like, we got more of this, we got a bunch of that. You wouldn't believe how many Russian boots they have. Go pick a size. They should just open up an army and navy supply store in Russia, or sorry, in Ukraine, with all that stuff, because it's like, and we hear the stories about when the U.S. pieced out in Afghanistan a couple of years ago, if you remember this, and they're like, hey, fuck, we're out of here. Or Iraq, we're out of here. And, and they left behind billions of dollars worth of equipment. It's that, plus everyone's getting their asses kicked. That's what's going on in Ukraine right now. That's kind of the accurate layman picture, if you will, that I see in my mind, right?
Yeah. Oh, which makes me think of another problem that I'm just contemplating on the summary that you, Chris, made, which is a great summary. The problem that the Russians had when the counteroffensive from Ukraine started a week ago. They actually saw those small units, but those who were in the first front line on the Russian side. But it took them time to actually communicate with their artillery. So, which was, it took like a long time. That's what I read on Russian mill bloggers' posts. It took them so much time that, and Ukrainians were so fast and so dynamic that they just went inside the land, like 30, 40 kilometers deep. And they just didn't have time to use their artillery because of their bad communication between different units.
Sure, because they would have had to communicate back to a rear echelon command post where the Russian guys manning it already fucked off. So there's nobody it's like, I'm trying to get a hold of anybody 5 minutes later. Bob, are you there? Nope. How about Fred? Are you there? Yuri, Sergey, anybody with artillery? Bueller? Nope. That's why it took so long. Everybody went home.
Just got to make them feel good on the front lines, eh? I've called, but there's no one's picking up.
Exactly. It goes straight to voicemail every time. What do you want us to do here?
And they're like, hey, call Putin. And Putin's like, I don't know what you're talking about. I'm Frank Miller, HVAC salesman from Nebraska.
He's in Nebraska.
By the way, Chris, you said that they are liars. Yeah, that's right. Just I was just thinking. I remember when Gorbachev died. And there was a funeral, what Putler said about his attendance of the funeral.
What did he say?
He actually said that he will be away those days on whatever trips, so he won't be able to visit.
He's at a retreat.
And I was like, this guy hates Gorbachev for the fact that he actually led. He thinks that Gorbachev led the USSR to collapse, which, as we know, Putler thinks as the biggest catastrophe of the 20th century, and he wants to restore the USSR. So he really hates Gorbachev. So instead of just coming and saying this openly, he's just like, I'll be away. I'll be out of town on some errands.
He's a narcissist who's cornered, and that's dangerous. Now he's Frank Miller in Nebraska.
Yeah. He's like, I'm growing a mustache that weekend. I can't make it. But yeah, that was a weird dynamic, when Gorbachev died, because the rest of the world loved Gorby. It was like, Gorby's a good guy. He opened it up. He brought in McDonald's. Well, fuck, how can you not like a guy that embraced McDonald's and Coca-Cola and all the other things that country. Yeah. And I was alive for when the Iron Curtain came down. And it was interesting because when that happened in Berlin, Vladimir Putin, and this is the story that I find fascinating. The reason why we're here today is when that Iron Curtain came down in Berlin and West Germany and East Germany were united. because Gorbachev's like, just so you know, peace out. We're finished in Berlin. We're just kind of, you guys better fucking find a way out of the country. Gorbachev didn't get the memo, Putin didn't get the memo. And he's like a senior officer. Was he a senior or junior officer? And he was in this Russian army building where, the at the time, which is the KGB, which policed that part of Germany. Yeah. He's one of the guys. He runs in, starts taking all the files, shovels them into the furnace, and he starts burning everything, gets on the loudspeaker. He's like, I want you to know that the Russian army's on their way and we're going to shoot you all. There was no one in there. But he was so angry with the idea that he was abandoned by Gorbachev that he literally, that is where this started. And I found that fascinating because I watched a couple of specials on Putin, because I need to understand these guys. I have to understand, what happened, what went into making this person. That's kind of how I am. And all of that started. You bring up Gorbachev and him not going to the funeral. Well, no shit. Gorbachev left him in Berlin, and he's like, I don't know, make your way home, figure it out. And he's like, you fucking guy, you fucking wrecked the USSR. You left me to die. I had to trick my way out of it. I had to burn a bunch of stuff. And he made his way home. Like he basically apparently just like skeeved his way home on trains and buses and pretended he wasn't that guy. And he made his way back to Russia. And that was where this guy was born. And I found that story fascinating. So when he didn't go to his funeral, I wasn't shocked.
Well, I didn't know that. That's interesting.
Yeah, fascinating, isn't it? That he just and this is him wanting to bring it all back together. This is him wanting to, he was so mad about the crumbling of what he thought was a great, powerful empire that he buried that in the back of his head. And we're watching him die because of it. And it's fucking great. Like these stories that I'm getting out of Ukraine, and this is what you get, right? Like, we can get layman. We can talk about war strategies, tactics. We can talk about leadership. We can talk about the will of the Ukrainian people. That guy harbored resentment for a really long time, right? Like a really long time. And this is what he's getting. He is destroying his country. He's destroying the economy. He's destroying another country. He's murdering thousands of people. And he's hiding out in a mansion in Sochi, and he's being asked for his resignation. And his military bloggers are saying, we're fucked. Like, this is the result of that. And I find that fascinating. Like, absolutely fascinating.
I love it. And it's a matter of time before the majority of the population figures it out. They haven't yet, but they will. And then we'll see what happens.
It will start, as you, Chris, mentioned, from propaganda. This entire propaganda machine should collapse somehow. It will start from little pieces and then it will collapse completely. That's what happened, by the way, in Ukraine at Ukrainian Revolution. When it started collapsing, then the political system started collapsing, and then the top guy left the country.
Well, it's systemic of the last two Russian revolutions again, 1905, 1917. Same thing with, exact same thing. History is repeating itself.
Yeah, you can, propaganda is what it is. It's not sustainable if it's not the truth, right? We're seeing it in the United States of America. We're going to see it here in Canada with this Poilievre guy that we got that just got elected to be the conservative hard right leader of a party here in Canada. He's nutso. But lies are not sustainable. Fake people running around the internet pretending to be someone they're not, when they're sitting there behind a computer screen with multiple accounts pretending to be none other than Frank Wilson, HVAC salesman.
Brett Miller.
But it's not sustainable, right? These cracks come because it's not sustainable. This isn't real. And the real wins over the unreal every time. Sometimes you can live in like this suspended reality, which we did when Trump was president, which we're kind of right now in Canada as we watch the two sides kind of come together. There's these culture wars, but the culture wars are really, the people no one likes, pretending to have a whole bunch of people that support them, but they're a bunch of Russian trolls and bloggers and people that are sitting behind accounts with like 50 Twitter accounts that are just acting like assholes. And it's not sustainable. Like the telling people reality is not reality only lasts for so long, right? You can only do that for a certain period of time. You can only subjugate people to bullshit information, lies, terrible economy, terrible military for so long before a whole bunch of people go, why are we fucking listening to this guy? He's clearly fucking off his rocker. I have VPN. what I'm reading on Facebook is around the world, not just but around the world, is that we're fucked, right? Like that's what this is. It's that slow roll of real information that goes in that breaks up that unsustainable bullshit that we all know just you can't count on because it ain't real, right?
And the older generation, going back to what Alex alluded to earlier in 1985 with the Soviet occupied Afghanistan, will be mothers talking to the other old babas that aren't on the internet, dealing with that double-edged sword. Word of mouth. Where's my son? Where's my son? They lied to me. They lied to me. That's between that younger generation that wants to know what's happening outside of their borders and the reality of this war, and the older generation that is not, immersed in the internet bullshit and social media. It'll spread word of mouth, but it's inevitable that propaganda machine is beginning to break down. We're seeing the cracks and fissures now. We're seeing the party lines starting to go against the party narrative, and that's really good news.
Yeah. Talking of which, I'm just thinking. I saw today a post on one of Russian mill bloggers' Telegram channels. The post about, actually the official Russian ledger of Ukrainian losses with things like with shit, like, Ukraine lost 245 airplanes. We never had so many airplanes.
Just
we had problems.
They're using a fucking random number generator.
Yeah. Or Ukraine lost 2,400 tanks. We only had like 800 tanks in the beginning of the war. Maybe more now.
Correction. Now you have 2,000
you're
tanks.
Up, you're up 650 today.
Yeah.
It's like me at a roulette table.
But what is interesting, I saw the comments there, and the comments, of course, are from Russian side. And 90% of comments are like, that's bullshit. We don't believe it. What? And they are saying, just like I said, we know that they never had more than like 800 tanks in Ukraine. Mm-hmm. Those are Russians who really believe in Putler. They are like very like pro-Russian, but they are like saying, this is bullshit. Do they really believe in what they are saying?
Yeah,
what they're writing? So,
well, even the most hardcore
start
people
understanding. The people start understanding that those are lies, and that's a good sign.
Yeah, that's where it's like in these innocent, like you can pretend the war is just a special military operation, but it's in the innocent facts where this stuff kind of comes out, right? Where they're like, we've bombed the Ukraine people to the tune of we've killed 20 million, and they're like, oh, fuck, like 10 million people live in the country. How did you kill 20 million people? That's not true. Like,
well,
you're just making this shit up,
gentlemen. The timing on this is good. The timing of this counteroffensive is good because Russia, as I said earlier, has to suck back and reload, and winter is coming, and that slows all war fighting down, and that allows this entire propaganda machine to continue to further break down. So it's find silver linings where you can, and this would be one of them.
Yeah.
Another interesting signal that I heard last week. The biggest Russian TV channel that concentrated on the war, on the special operation, which they call the war, for the past 6 months, actually from day one, they now announced that they will gradually start doing entertainment programs like in the pre-war, time. So,
like Seinfeld's going to be syndicated in Russian.
Sorry.
Seinfeld will be syndicated in Russian.
Syndicated, yeah. But
okay.
so they probably understood they need to return the entertainment programs just to make sure that everything is stable, everything is good.
I misread. So they're going to go back to conventional programming,
yes,
just to try to bring the morale of the population up. Is that what
I think so? Yeah.
Okay.
I think
so. Like steer attention away from the war.
Well, yeah, because if there's one thing I know you've been clamoring for is the next 12 days of coverage of the Queen's funeral, probably, right?
Yeah, we haven't beat that to death enough.
Yeah. What's Ring Road? Ring Road around Moscow. What is that road? Have you heard of this road? Ring Road?
That's the road around Moscow, like a big highway.
Big deal if
around
it gets shut down? Is that a big deal if the National Guard closes Ring Road?
Yeah, it happened
imagine,
2 days
yeah.
ago, I think. Yeah, that's
Wow.
I saw it. There's video of National Guard trucks going.
Yep.
On that road.
Yeah. So a couple days ago, they announced that it was closed. It's still been closed. It's been closed for 2 days. That's the news that,
Oh, really?
that we're getting in a comment section. I just went and confirmed it. And the last time that they closed Ring Road for anything was in 1991 for something called a coup. Do you remember this?
Yeah, that was the coup that preceded the collapse of the USSR.
Yeah. They closed Ring Road. Twitter is popping off about it. T. Osborne says it in the comments section. Thanks, T. Something's happening in Moscow. Ring Road was closed. So I went and looked it up. And indeed, Ring Road in Moscow has been closed. The National Guard has shut it down. Quote, this is the first time I'm seeing Ring Road closed down. Rosgvardia is moving.
Yes.
The whole
Russian
Ring Road
National
is
Guard.
National Guard. That's what Rosgvardia is?
Yes.
Okay. Is moving. The whole Ring Road is closed, as you can see. There's a video. I'll get it up for you right now. So and they're saying Moscow, this is 4 hours ago. Moscow Ring Road was stopped by the Russian army. The reason is not yet known. This is from an hour ago. It says the National Guard has moved into Ring Road. In Russia, no word on why. Russian army is quiet. So let me just give you another graphic so we can have a look at it together, because I find this very interesting. Hopefully interesting. You know, one of those ones where you're like, fuck, I hope this is true. I hope I can say it's true. I don't know if it's true. I don't know what's going on. But this is the map. This is Ring Road, I guess. Is that correct?
Yeah, the big one.
Yeah, it's all closed. This is every way in and out Ring Road. Moscow is closed as of right now.
Mm-hmm.
Wow, what's going on in Moscow?
What do you make about that, Al? What do you make about that? What do you think?
Another coup. That would be interesting.
Wouldn't that be nice? Wouldn't that be nice?
Yeah.
Fascinating.
No,
that'd be great. Feels
Well,
premature, but at least let's get some civil unrest and make some racket and start a coup.
Yeah, let me just get this video. Let's watch the video together. Hang on one second.
Yeah.
Because I find this fascinating. It's like shutting down DC. You know? Which, you know, is... I mean, the fact that we're just getting like little dribs and drabs from Twitter. Sorry, I'm just going to grab this video off.
Yeah, it'll be interesting to see how this progresses over the next couple days.
Mm-hmm.
Again, these are those cracks and fissures in the propaganda machine that are going to leak out, and it'll spread like wildfire. It'll be like Russians retreating from Crimea.
Yeah. Well, but by the way, the past 2 days, mill bloggers, as I said, completely changed their narrative. They, for the past 2 days, like yesterday and on Sunday, they were like, "Oh, where will another counteroffensive happen? Probably there, probably here. Oh, now we see that the Ukrainian tanks are spread all over the front line in the south. So we assume that they are just trying to hide their main point of attack from us." You know, that's
And
what
these mill bloggers.
So, yeah.
These mill bloggers are state sponsored. Like that's the state. Wow, that's really interesting.
I have no idea. They're just guessing.
Another rumor, but that's from Ukrainian sources. I heard that's a rumor, but still, the rumor is that some of the regiments in the south, some of the Russian regiments in the south, are in talks with the Ukrainian army for surrender.
See, that's really good news. I love the power of psyops. It's called psychological operations, and it's basically counter propaganda. And
my ex-wife used that very well.
I'm confident that the Ukrainian military, under advisement from experts from the West, are utilizing that to their advantage, especially if they're abandoning equipment. And you have Russian-speaking Ukrainians that can jump on that radio and start spreading shit down south. they're just going to start fucking off. Like, it's a beautiful thing. Like, you made my day with this.
Just hearing that.
Yeah, man. I mean, I could just envision what I would do. So I know what they're doing. Like, we've captured all this stuff. Let's fuck around here. Like, it's like making prank calls in the 80s when you were a kid. It's the same thing. They'll jump on those radios and they'll get a solid Russian speaking guy on there, and he'll just start spreading misinformation and allow that information to flow down the line and watch the shit show that unfolds after that. And that's why your mill bloggers are turned on their heads right now. It's a beautiful thing.
That's fucking awesome. So you're hearing that Ukrainian forces are negotiating with some Russian troops in the south to abandon their posts and come and be Ukrainian citizens. Is that correct? Like, is that offer still out there? I know that offer was out there for Russian soldiers who were like, hey, drop your shit. We'll give you 60 grand. What do you think?
Well, I don't know about the conditions of surrender. No idea, but just
taking advantage
what I know,
of the fact that they're fucking starving and cold and the winter's coming too, right?
What I know is that Ukrainians guarantee them the Geneva Convention, all the rules and conditions, appropriate conditions. And there was one call that was online, the recording of a call where a Russian soldier is calling a hotline, and he's like, well, I heard that I can surrender. What are the conditions? And he's actually asking, will you cut my balls? And they're like, no way, no. Wait, will you cut my balls? That's what he asked. Will I get balls cut? They're like, no, don't worry. We will be treated according to Geneva Convention. That will be all right. So
yeah, you got to handle that differently and just basically yell across the front line, Sergey, your mom called, said surrender. I'm putting on burgers. Come on over.
Here's the video of Russian forces closing down Ring Road all around Moscow for the first time since 1991, and the last time there was a coup. Watch this. We'll watch the video.
Я впервые вижу в жизни, чтобы МКАД останавливали. Едут наши, блядь. Ну, Росгвардия, конечно, да, вон Вэшки, Зэшки. Весь МКАД перекрыли. Ну как весь? Ахуй, впервые в жизни вижу, блядь. Пойдем пешком перейдем. Позднякову скинем, что в Балашку едут, блядь.
Now, Alex, I'm good, but I don't speak Russian. Could you understand what he was saying?
Yeah, he actually said, this is the first time I see it in my life that this road is closed, and the trucks of the National Guard are going with Z and V letters on them. So that's again, he's repeating himself that he sees it for the first time in his life.
So those are troop transport trucks. Every one of those is a troop transport truck. You could probably fit 8 to 10 guys in each truck. They're mobilizing foot soldiers, ground guys. So that to me looks like they're going to start putting up blockades or something just by looking at those trucks. Those are troop transport trucks, 100%.
It's awesome having you guys here for this to figure this out for me, because I would have just gone, there's a coup.
There could be. There could be.
Fascinating shit.
Day's not over yet.
Shit. Yeah. No, it's interesting. Listen, Alex, I'll let you go because I think it's like almost 12 o'clock over there, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
11:30 European time. Listen, dude, it's so fucking good to get you on the show to talk about great news finally after 6-7 months, isn't it?
Yes. Thank you guys for having me. Thank you, Chris, for your comments and the summary.
Thank you,
is really
Alex.
cool.
Much
I hope next time we see each other, we will talk about how they have surrendered.
I hope so.
And how you got a new renter in your apartment just outside of Bucha, and his name is Frank Miller, HVAC salesman.
Oh.
And Alex will be
Yeah.
running a used Russian tank dealership.
That's good.
Yeah, that's good. Alex, great to see you, my friend. We'll chat with you soon. You please stay safe, and let's catch up very soon. Hopefully, we've got some more good news, and we can jump on and inform people here in Canada about the will and the strength of the Ukrainian folks and your military and the powerful message that you're sending the rest of the world by kicking the shit out of what we thought was a superpower, which turns out it's just a bunch of homeless guys that steal bikes. So thank you very much for doing this, brother. Great to see you.
Thank you. Take care.
Talk to you soon. At Dayrabekove is where you can find him. Alex Dayrabekove from European Ukraine, updating us on the war effort, which is going swimmingly for the Ukrainian people, Chris, which is fucking
Absolutely.
wild.
This mill blogger thing is the most interesting thing I've learned today.
Have you not read anything about the mill bloggers?
No, not really. I kind of focus on the tactical piece, but now I'm going to dig into it. The fact that it's state sponsored in the way Alex described it, and how it's beginning to fracture and spread disarray as far as accurate information, not just propaganda like the normal bullshit and normal rhetoric. They're starting to state facts. There's confusion among them. I mean, this is a great thing. It really is. This is how armies break down. Is command.
What do you make?
communication.
What do you
Go
make
ahead.
of that? No, just cool. What do you make of that Ring Road video that we just watched? If you're 25-year combat veteran, lots of tactical, strategic experience, and if you're just joining us, Alex just left in Ukraine. Ukraine's taking the fight to Moscow. Big problems in Moscow. Putin splits. He's in Sochi. Russia has shut down this road around the city called Ring Road. It was a protective kind of road where everybody it's like a big roundabout, but it's all around the city, which you can see here. And you can kind of see that there's major blocks. You've got armored troop vehicles that are running around Ring Road. You've got the National Guard that has shut it down. Here's the video. But what do you make of this? Obviously, other than not being able to speak Russian.
You see troop transport trucks and obviously being escorted by civilian or military police, obviously mobilizing to probably key intersections along that road. And what does that look like? I don't know. Is it a coincidence that Putin is fucked off to go hide, that his forces are losing ground, and suddenly the National Guard is mobilizing in the capital city? Coincidence? I think not. I don't believe in coincidence. This has probably been building for a while. It'll be interesting to see how it transcends the next couple days, but I think there's trouble in Moscow. We're looking at that. There's no other reason they would do that.
Wow. Trouble in the motherland. Look at that guy directing traffic. And you're right. I mean, they're all personnel carrier vehicles, right? You might see a couple of buses.
Carriers.
Yeah. Troop transport.
Yeah,
and you
they'll
see a
carry
couple of
troops
buses
and
like. Okay.
Sure.
Yeah.
They're moving troops around. That's exactly what they're doing.
Now I'm
Next
fucking
couple
turned
days,
on.
man. Fuck it. I've had the best day of the week. So much shit's happening so fast. Like, you just watch tomorrow morning what's happened. The next day, it's going to be some very interesting times as we build up. And I'm really impressed of what they've done, because they're chasing a clock now. Winter is fucking hard, and it's going to be harder on the Russians because they have no sanctuary in the Ukraine. How are you going to launch a counter offensive when you've got no place to stay? Like, you're under-equipped, under-resourced. They'll freeze to death. It'll be the opposite of the Germans advanced into the Soviet Union or Russia during World War II. They literally extended themselves to the point where they were freezing to death. So I just can't see a significant counter offensive, for lack of a better term, by Russia, unless they do it in the next 60 days. They got the shit kicked out of them, so they're under-resourced. Their morale is in the toilet. They have a potential incident happening back home. The propaganda machine's failing. There's no way they can reconstitute to come back in the next 60 days. And I hope to fuck I'm right on this one.
So much good news today.
It is a lot of good news.
It's a good news day. Army Chris, Fire for Effect, the name of the podcast. Follow him at the Army Chris. He served this country with distinction for 25 years all across the world, tons of deployments, tactician, strategist, munitions expert. Really appreciate you taking time. And you've got a podcast on Wednesday where you're going to really dig into this with some guys who know way more about this than me. Right?
Yeah,
So
it's going to
tell
be a
us
good
about
one.
that. Yeah.
6 p.m. Mountain Standard Time every Wednesday, which is 8 p.m. Eastern, Central, whatever you guys call your time in Ontario. What is it? Eastern?
Eastern, yeah.
Eastern. So 8 p.m. Eastern, 6 p.m. Mountain. This week, obviously, this is a story we have to chase, or the developing story we have to chase. And I'm going to have my my panel of my peers on to kind of get our opinions on it and hopefully tie back with Dean on everything that happened. So yeah, man, thanks for having me on. And everybody, if you want to learn more, jump in Wednesday night.
All right. It'll be right here at deanblundell.com. You can check it out on Chris's feed. You can check it out at It's Dean Blundell on Twitter as well. It's just where you'll find it. But give Chris a call, a follow at the Army Chris on Twitter. Thanks for doing this, dude. And we'll put that slide out on the socials this week so people can have a look at it. Real quick before we let you go. The will of the Ukrainian people, or more impressive, or how shit the Russian army actually is? What's more shocking to you?
How shitty the Russian army is, hands
That's
down. If like we had this conversation beginning of February, and I called it. I said that Russian war machine will fucking smash these people, and that's not what's happened. But the fact that they haven't. This is shifted to the will and the morale of the people, and forget the funding. Okay. Forget the equipment for a minute that's been provided, because we provided the people of Afghanistan with comparable equipment, and they fucking crumbled like a chip bag in 1 week. The resolve and will of the people, especially with the forming of this resistance, non-uniform people putting their lives at risk for their country. There's no scenario where the Russians win this.
Mm-hmm.
None, not in my opinion.
That's a huge statement coming from you, because you're like very realistic when it comes to this stuff, right?
Yeah, it's a
Very
combination of a shattered Russian army that is fucking pathetic, and the mental resolve, or just the resolve of the Ukrainian people to not kneel. That's look at your history. That's all I got to say. And
you look back on the impetus that started this thing, and you said it right at the start of the podcast. It's a good place to jump off. But you said at the start of the podcast where it's like Zelensky could have left. He was given an option.
Could have left
by the Western world.
And what he said, I need ammunition, not a ride out. Words to that effect. I'm paraphrasing.
Yeah. Say what you want about the guy. Say what you want about all the bullshit and all the, segmented parts of Ukraine and their corrupt history. Say what you want about that. How many guys like that are totally taking the easy way out? And it was the impetus, and a lot of people followed him down that road, and you're seeing them beat the living shit out of Russians, and they are going to take it all back. Chris, thanks for doing this. Really appreciate it, brother. Army Chris, give him a follow, Fire for Effect, give it a subscribe, wherever you get your fine podcast. Thanks. We'll talk to you soon, and good luck tonight.
See you guys.
Sorry, Wednesday night. Good luck.
You bet.
Talk to you soon. Army Chris, ladies and gentlemen. Well, that's the good news story for today, isn't it? Huh? It's crazy when you get to know a guy like Alex and you follow his journey and you watch his face over a 6-month period. And we've had him on for 6 months. And you see the change in his face based on 2 weeks of good news after 6 months of terror. Really. It's fucking crazy. Putin's going down too. Guaranteed. Guaranteed he's trying to figure out new signature to be Frank Miller, HVAC salesman. Aren't you Putin? Oh, Frank Miller, HVAC salesman. The mustache says it all. Sweet shades. And he starts losing. Where does he go? He hides in a mansion in Sochi. Pussy. Have a great day, everybody. Thanks so much. Thanks to Alex for joining us. Give him a follow at Dayrabekove on Twitter. You can find his Twitter handle actually in the description of the show if you're on YouTube, wherever you are, Spotify, Google, etc. You can download the podcast, subscribe to the podcast anywhere you get your podcasts, as well as YouTube, Dean Blundell Show, Twitch, Dean Blundell TV on Twitch. And don't forget, everything we do is at deanblundell.com. Sign up for a newsletter there. Check out one of our, 100 podcasts that we've got in the podcast section. And don't forget to visit the shop. We've got a bunch of cool clothes you can buy, including the GFY collection. We'd encourage you to do so. Thanks to our friends at Easy Auto Financial for making this possible today. As always, powered by Easy Auto Financial, helping you get into a car. If you need financing, they've got it. Not only do they have some fine financing, but they'll do it for free. That's just what they do. It's all turnkey. Make sure you visit our friends at easyautofinancial.ca today if you're looking for a car. And kivlaw.ca. We are powered by our friends at Kivlaw Defense Lawyers. All you have to do is go to kivlaw.ca, check them out. Ton of educational stuff on there. A lot of people are going through legal issues. Listen, if you had a tough time during the pandemic, if you got over your skis, if you maybe went to Ottawa at a certain time in the winter and you're up against it, he's your guy. Listen, I'll help you guys out too. I don't want you to lose any more freedom. Come see the light. Rob not only helps you see the light, he holds your hand through some serious legal issues that a lot of us face from time to time. So make sure you get Rob in on your side. Robert at kivlaw.ca. Again, Kivlaw Defense Lawyers, Robert at kivlaw.ca. If you're up against it, you got a legal issue, someone being accused of doing something you didn't do, Rob's your guy. Go to kivlaw.ca today. And of course, our friend at Ed's Fine Imports. Ed, good dude. Canadian made Gitch. He makes underwear for Canadian guys, so it's a bigger pouch in the front. You're welcome. It's my idea. I know, Ed. I'm like, make sure the pouch is bigger. Boxer briefs with the pouch in the front. Yeah, all the rage. But Ed defined this. Ed made this happen, and he makes them in Canada. So do yourself a favor. Go to Ed's Fine Imports, order 3 pairs of underwear, and he's going to send you the 4th for free when you use promo code GITCH and then the number 3. GITCH3, promo code. Massive online sale right now. Clothing for men and boys. He's got tons of stuff. John Barbados, 34 Heritage jeans. But get the GITCH. Get a pair of jeans. But when you get the GITCH, use the promo code and you'll send you a free pair. Tons of different colors too. Huge online store. Go to edsfineimports.com. Thanks all. Have a great day. We'll see you tomorrow right here on this very program at 3:00. And if you could give us a nice review, rate, I guess. I've been told to tell people to rate and review. That'd be nice. Until then, we'll see you tomorrow. Bye.